Let me ask you a quick question. What if you decided right now, but you wanted to start your very own mobile connectivity brand? Your first thought is probably, well, I'm going to need a few $1 billion, massive fleets of trucks, and an absolute army of engineers to build cell towers all over the place, right? But what if I told you that you could enter the mobile market and launch a nationwide network without laying a single cable or erecting a single tower? No heavy lifting required. Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. This explainer is your telecom playbook. We're going to decode the whole MVNO versus MNO landscape and see exactly how modern companies are bypassing those traditional infrastructure barriers to build some incredibly cool telecom businesses. Here is how we're going to break it down today. First, the mobile network dilemma. Then, we'll get MNOs versus MVNOs explained. Third, we'll walk through the 5 types of MVNOs. After that, control, cost, and coverage. And finally, exactly how to launch an MVNO. All right, let's jump right into part 1, the mobile network dilemma, and really the massive barrier to entry in telecom. So here's the absolute elephant in the room for literally any entrepreneur looking at the telecom space. Do you actually need cell towers to start a mobile network? Now, traditionally, the answer was a big, resounding yes. Building a network meant you had to acquire highly regulated, unbelievably expensive licensed spectrum. You had to secure real estate for cell sites, deploy radio access networks, configure the backhaul, manage physical security. I mean, we are talking astronomical financial investments before you even sign up customer number 1. But today, the modern answer is a definitive no. You don't need towers. You honestly just need a great brand. Think about it. Your favorite grocery store or, I don't know, shoe brand could theoretically launch a mobile network tomorrow. And they do this by completely separating the physical infrastructure from the customer experience. This split has created entirely new business models, which kind of brings us to the whole alphabet soup of telecom. Which brings us to part 2. Let's get MNOs and MVNOs explained and unpack all those acronyms. Okay, first up is the MNO, the mobile network operator. I want you to think of an MNO as a giant commercial landlord, right? They owned the entire apartment building. They own the plumbing, the wiring, the land it literally sits on. In telecom terms, the MNO owns the physical radio access networks, the giant cell towers, the licensed mobile spectrum, and the heavy mobile core network. And because they own all the physical metal and the airwaves, they carry the entire burden of network deployment, coverage planning, and upgrades. So, if a bad storm knocks down a tower, it is 100% the MNO's job to go out there and fix it. Now, let's contrast that with the MVNO, or mobile virtual network operator. If the MNO is that big commercial landlord, the MVNO is like a super savvy tenant who subleases a huge block of space to run a really cool, highly curated premium boutique hotel. The MVNO does not own the underlying radio access network. Instead, they just buy network capacity wholesale from the MNO, and then they sell mobile services under their own unique brand. Because they aren't pouring millions of dollars into laying fiber or fixing broken cell towers, they can focus all of their energy on a purely digital customer experience. We're talking customer acquisition, slick digital onboarding, pricing, billing, and just building really great apps. So the contrast here is pretty stark. On one side, an MNO requires massive infrastructure investment and full control over the radio network. But an MVNO, on the other hand, requires just a fraction of that initial investment because they're using wholesale access. They own the brand, and they own the direct relationship with the customer. The key takeaway here is that an MVNO isn't just like a smaller MNO. It's an entirely different, incredibly flexible business model designed purely for agility. All right, moving on to part 3, the 5 types of MVNOs, or what I like to call the spectrum of control. You see, the MVNO model isn't just a simple on and off switch. It's actually a sliding scale of technical responsibility. At the very top, you have the branded reseller. This is your simplest entry point. Basically, you handle marketing and sales, and the host network does almost all the technical heavy lifting for you. Step down a bit to a service provider, and you start taking on more commercial responsibility, things like managing your own billing and setting your own pricing. Next up is the light MVNO. This is where you actually start owning operational systems, like customer relationship management and SIM card provisioning. Then we get to the full MVNO. Now this is the major leagues. A full MVNO operates its own independent core network and subscriber infrastructure. They literally just don't own the radio towers. And finally, we have the modern evolution, the cloud MVNO. These guys use software-defined telecom infrastructure and APIs, which allows for incredibly fast elastic provisioning and totally digital eSIM workflows. It's pretty wild. Let's slide right into part 4. We need to talk about control, cost, and coverage, and really understand the trade-offs here. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, wow, Building an operational platform sounds insanely complicated. Well, enter two more acronyms to our telecom alphabet soup, MVNE and MVNA. But don't worry, they are actually here to help you out. An MVNE is a mobile virtual network enabler. They provide the technical infrastructure to help you run your MVNO, stuff like the billing engines and CRM platforms, so you literally don't have to build them from scratch. And an MVNA? That's an aggregator. They go out and negotiate massive wholesale deals with MNOs and then carve those up for smaller MVNOs. So you can essentially just plug right into these partners to get your brand to market way faster. And this brings us to what we call the control divide. On the MNO side, control is heavily infrastructure driven, right? It's all about optimizing radio signals, managing that precious spectrum, and planning physical coverage capacity. But over on the MVNO side, your control is purely service driven. Your whole battleground is the customer experience. It's digital onboarding, specialized enterprise connectivity, and making sure your billing works absolutely seamlessly. Now, we got to address a really common misconception. People always ask, are MVNOs always slower than MNOs, or do they just have worse coverage? And the answer is, actually, not necessarily. An MVNO's coverage and speed are directly tied to their host MNO's network. So if the MNO has amazing 5G coverage, well, the MVNO can offer amazing 5G coverage too. But, and this is a big but, the actual user experience can be affected by the specific wholesale agreements you negotiate, traffic management policies, roaming arrangements, and obviously the devices your customers are using. So you aren't inherently slower, but your performance is totally dictated by the specific deal you manage to strike with your host network. Okay, part 5. Let's get practical. How to actually launch an MVNO, the 6-step playbook. So step 1, define your target market. Are you going after international travelers who need quick eSIMs, or maybe Internet of Things devices? You have to define this super clearly. Step 2, choose your MVNO model based on how much operational control you actually need, like we talked about earlier. Step 3, select a host MNO. You'll want to carefully evaluate their 5G support and their wholesale terms. Step 4, build your service platform to handle your APIs and your billing. Step 5, integrate your shiny new platform right into the host's network. And finally, step 6, launch and optimize. Just remember, at the end of the day, the technology is really just a tool to support your overarching business model. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with one absolutely critical, strategic question. Do you need to own the mobile network, or do you just need to own the customer and service experience? If owning physical metal towers isn't your true competitive advantage, the MVNO model is a brilliant, highly adaptable way to enter the telecom market. It lets you focus your capital exactly where it matters most, directly on the people actually using your service. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning the infrastructure and keep focusing on the customer.